Hey everyone, it's Ten Types, and the technical machines in the Pokemon TCG are a really interesting mechanic, or maybe pseudo mechanic. They're not a mechanic in the same way that like the EXs are, or like tools as a whole are, but they are a very interesting new addition to the TCG with the Scarlet and Violet era. And when I say new, they're not actually new. They were originally in the oldest one here was Expedition, which was during, I believe, yeah, the Wizards of the Coast era, right? No, I don't know. I think it was, but anyways, and then the most recent, before Scarlet and Violet was here in Rising Rivals. I actually don't know what era this is. Apparently 2009. I didn't really play the TCG then, and I'm not so familiar with it. And also, it's a long time ago, so it's a very different thing. So within the modern TCG, their appearance here has been in the Scarlet and Violet era, and I want to take a look at them and talk about them and how they are interesting, but also how they fall short, in my opinion. And to give a bit of context on Technical Machines, so what they do, they are tool cards, and they have this text here that says the Pokemon this card is attached to can use the attack on this card. You still need the necessary energy to use the attack, which it says in the card. And if this card is attached to one of your Pokemon, discard it at the end of your turn. So they give you an extra attack you can use, and you can only use them once. There are ways to recover them, I guess, but they're pretty niche here. Also, regarding the older technical machines, as I said, I'm not as familiar with them. They're also a long time ago, but if you if you have more insight to give on that, you can leave it down below in the comment section. I know there was some more interactions with technical machines. And there's more technical machines, but also I looked through them. There isn't anything crazy there. Honestly, there's a lot of overlap and a lot of pretty fine, but nothing crazy with the technical machines there. But anyways, the technical machines are tool cards, and of course, as I said, they were introduced in the Scarlet and Violet era here. I believe what the first set was Paradox Rift, which four of the six were in. Then TM Crisis Punch was in Paldean Fates, and then the most recent is Technical Machine Fluorite, which was in Surging Sparks. And they're a bit different from each other, as we'll see. Some are more similar than others, but they were introduced in the Scarlet and Violet era, which had I guess, the most major change with it, arguably, is the fact that Pokemon tools were no longer considered items. So we look at EXP share, it's a tool here. Here it's also a tool. This is the first printing of it. However, it's also an item here. That was changed. Does that matter too much? No, but also it kind of does, because then Pokemon push tools more, notably with the supporter Arvin. I know someone, I'm not sure who it was, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't see the video, but I am aware there was someone in a video on Arvin talking about it. And yeah, it's a very impactful card in the Pokemon TCG. It's very good in Standard, and also it's a card that has pushed tools to a more interesting part in the metagame. I will say, right before the Scarlet and Violet era, there was the tool card for Seal Stone. We're not really going to talk about that here, though the Seal Stone cards do have some similarities, allowing you to copy, or I guess utilize, attacks or abilities that aren't on the card, that are just on the tool. But anyways, Arvin here is definitely a card that has kind of changed the landscape of the game a little bit. I wouldn't say it's anything crazy, but it is the main card pushing tools, and the technical machines are alongside that. However, as I said, they're kind of like their own mechanic here, and they don't really have things to interact with them. I think the only one is TM Machine, which, by the way, horrendous name for a card. Technical Machine. Like, what is this? But anyways, it's an item that lets you search for three tools that have Technical Machine in their name, which are the cards, of course, we're talking about, and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Honestly, never seen this card played. It was played some in, okay, I don't know what this deck is. Iron Thorns, Aegislash. I've never seen anyone play this. I've seen similar things to this, but then mainly seen play within Rotom V-Star. That being said, this card, I believe, came out earlier in Japan. Then it came out internationally. I don't think it was playable with the Rotom V-Star internationally. Yeah, it's an H regulation mark. But it came out in Destined Rivals, where the rest of the cards are I. So it was delayed internationally because of its printing. Again, it doesn't really matter here. It's not like it was crazy in Japan, but did want to mention that. And that's like really the only card that interacts with technical machines in particular. There are other cards that interact with technical machines or with tools in general. So you have synergies there, obviously, like Arvin, and the main one played right now, I think, is Technical Machine Evolution, which is played a lot with Arvin and is a very important part in a bunch of decks, and definitely the strongest of the technical machines. And it says for one colorless, you can choose up to two of your bench Pokemon, and then search for your deck for a Pokemon that evolves from each of them and put it onto those Pokemon, which is very solid to allow you to evolve faster, kind of like what Rare Candy does, but it's a tool. There are a lot of differences here. Ultimately, I'm not here to analyze how good this card is and then what exactly its use cases are and like how it changes the game. It's a good, one of the good technical machines, probably the best technical machine. And yeah, it's good for evolution based decks, specifically stage 2 decks, so you don't have to play rare candy, or so you can have a different route there. But yes, it's a very nice card here. It's nothing crazy, right? It's not anything super exciting. Evolving your Pokemon is something you can do. It's not letting you really evolve your Pokemon faster than normal either. Again, if it is a stage 2, it's going to be the same speed as rare candy there. So it's fun enough. It's fine. I'd have no critiques of this card. You could argue it's a little strong, I guess, though I would not argue that. I'd say it's pretty balanced, and a cool card in general. If all the technical machines were like this, I would be pretty happy. Again, there's only 6. 6 isn't that many. I'd rather see like maybe 10 at the minimum. I mean, you can compare them to the A specs. Let's see, how do I search up A specs? Here we go. A specs. And in a standard format, and there's 29 different ace specs, and you can only play one of them in your deck. The technical machines there's only 6 of them. You can play multiple as well. They kind of work together, as we'll see in just a second. So I feel like if like half of the ace spec slots have been dedicated to technical machine slots, that'd be better, because a lot of these ace specs are, I mean, generally I think Pokemon's done a decent job with balancing the ace specs. Even like the bad ones are kind of playable, and something like Energy Search Pro, which is in a vacuum pretty bad, like finds itself a good place in the meta. Same thing with something like Brilliant Blender. Not that the Brilliant Blender is insane, but it's all right. So overall, I think they've done a decent job of that. But again, we don't need 29 different ace specs, and that's true for a lot of cards. And the technical machines, despite the fact that they have flaws, as we'll talk about, I think they all are kind of cool, and more of them would be cool. I've not heard really anything bad said about them. Maybe like minor things, but very minor there. Also, I will mention here, they are tools as well. They aren't items, so they do counter, but do kind of. Did want to mention that it's not like the biggest thing in my opinion, but it is worth mentioning. Then also from that same set, as I said, 4 of them of the 6 are from the same set, but TM Devolution is the second best here. Technical Machine Devolution allows you to devolve each of your opponent's Pokemon, or their evolved Pokemon, by putting the highest stage evolution into their hand. I want to make a quick ruling note, if you're not familiar: evolved Pokemon versus evolution Pokemon. Notably, something like Archeops was put into play directly, so it didn't evolve. So it's not an evolved Pokemon; it is still an evolution. TM Devolution will not devolve it. That's something that like kind of matters. Doesn't really matter in standard right now, but did want to mention that. Honestly, the ruling's like a little confusing. It's not that confusing, but evolve versus evolution. Did want to mention that. But anyways, it devolves your opponent's Pokemon. Again, with rare candy, this can devolve Pokemon that have been rare candy, so it's harder to get them back up. It's also like the inverse of Team Evolution as well, so it's like a counter, I guess. It's not really used as that, but it can do that. And then also it's a card that allows you to devolve your opponent's Pokemon, allowing you to like reduce their HP by a little. If it's like Charmeleon to Charmander, that's not like that much lower, right? Wait a second. The Charmeleon that's played is immune. Yeah, is immune to effects of attack, so that will actually be immune to Team Devolution. But like the other one, that's a terrible example. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this will stop it. But some Pokemon like this Charmeleon or whatever, it'll be reduced down to 70 HP. So if you've done 70 to it, then you devolve it, you can knock it out. You can do this to a lot of your opponent's Pokemon to end up with these big sweeping turns to knock out a lot of your opponent's Pokemon. And then if you devolve Charizard EX, which has 330 HP, to Charmander with 70, that's just so much HP gone. That's 260. There we go. And so you can like remove most of their HP there, which is really, really good. But also that they give up one less prize. So it's interesting, a cool trade-off there. Allowing for some interesting gameplay patterns. I recently made a post. I recently made a video about talking about card design. And then I made a post to go along with it. Someone mentioned TM Devolution. And yeah, I'm really sorry that I don't remember who it was, but they made some really good points there. I didn't end up putting it in the video because TM Devolution isn't it's like a cool card with different routes. I'd say it's very much a card that's interesting within the competitive scene. In general play, it's kind of meh. It's pretty meta dependent and things like that. But it is a pretty cool card, leading to different routes you can go down. That being said, if you just use it like randomly, It doesn't like do anything usually against just like random stage ones. It just devolves them. You can play them again, right? So that's not really a knock on the card. You could say like, oh, we're talking about like serious plays, so competitive plays are the only thing that matters, and if you're viewing it from that way, then Team Devolution is like an amazing design. If you're viewing it just in terms of all the play, I think it's a little weaker because it's a bit more situational. But it's still a cool card here. And I do like it a lot. I think it's just a very solid design. Also, these two, as well as the third one we'll talk about, TM Turbo Energize, are all one colorless. This is obviously very payable. 5 out of the 6 are colorless, and colorless means that they can be played in a wide variety of decks. So I think that's really important. Team Devolution can be played in any deck. Team Evolution can be played in pretty much any deck, but if it's not an Evolution deck, it's going to be bad. Or no, it's not going to do anything. Team Devolution, as I said, could be in any deck. It's not going to have great value in every deck, but it could be used technically. And then TM Turbo Energize also is a similar idea here. Can be used really in any deck. For one colorless, you search your deck for 2 base Genjis and attach them to your bench Pokemon in any way you like. It's kind of like Joltik in Standard, but it's like weaker than Joltik. But it's a similar idea here. TM Turbo Energize has been played in a variety of different decks, though most of them have been slower stall-based decks in general, or like Iron Thorns EX, the pseudo control deck. These walling decks, though, I'd say is a big one. Iron Thorns honestly kind of functions like a wall as well, right? So, anyways, you mostly see it in that. You can pair it with Blissey as well. I guess that's something that's been done. And then also, apparently, people have played it in Ends. And then apparently, people have played it in Gardevoir. I've not seen that. I'm not going to lie. But anyways, you can play it in different things. It's pretty versatile. Looking actually at the City Leagues here, we might see more variety. I'm not sure. There's more like I'd say there's some lower caliber decks because it's more casual tournaments. So you can see it in something like Feraligatr or Okidogi. I was expecting more. Wait, no, what is that? Yeah, Okidogi. Anyways, I was expecting more, but anyways, Team Turbo Energize isn't like super strong, but I think it's fair. It's within the realm of balanced as well. Honestly, you could say the other two TMs are too strong. As I said, I wouldn't say that. I definitely would not say that for Team Devolution. I think it's very well balanced. Again, a little weird in terms of a casual sense. It just like kind of doesn't have a great place. And it's a casual, I mean like pretty like true casual. Not like rogue decks, but like newer players. But again, that's not a huge deal. And then Team Turbo Energize, I think is pretty nice here. I did think it was going to be better than it ended up being actually on reveal, but it has still been like pretty decent here. And it's another setup one as well. So Team Turbo Energize and Team Evolution are kind of similar there. Team Evolution is like the opposite, a late game finishing attack here. And I will talk about the not the fourth one from Paradox Drift. I will talk about the other finishing attack here, Technical Machine Crisis Punch. This is interesting. TM Devolution can like kind of take knockouts, but not exactly directly. TM Crisis Punch though can, and I think this is interesting. You want attacks that are like attacks. I feel like they don't all need to be that. Some versatility is fun, but in general in the Pokemon TCG, setup attacks aren't great. TM Evolution, I think, is by far the best one. Joltik's, but Jolting Charge is also pretty good, and then I don't know. Am I missing something? I mean, there was like Cleffa. There's also Badoo. Badoo's like not really that, but it is kind of a setup attack. And I can't think of anything else. There might be something I'm blanking on that's good. But anyways, Team Crisis Punch is another finishing attack, kind of like Team Devolution. This is truly a finishing attack, though. You can only use this if your opponent has exactly one prize remaining. It is 3 colorless. This is the first attack here that is not 1 colorless. It is still colorless, though, and it can be paid for in a variety of decks. Those mostly played in Lost Zone. Also, again, it is a little newer, but not that much newer. And so it is situational, but it is strong as well. I think TM Crisis Punch is okay, but again, it is pretty niche. I don't hate its design if there was a bunch of technical machines, but for the fact there's only 6, and this one's pretty situational and specific, and therefore just not great, then I don't love it. I don't hate it. I think it can be fun if you look at it within these decks that play Lost Zone stuff, notably with Cramorant here, you can attack for free, which is pretty fun, ignoring the attack cost. And then you can pay it in various stacks, though it is harder to pay, obviously, than 1 colorless here. So I'd rather see this as an attack similar to Charizard EX, doing more damage based on prizes your opponent's taken. Not the same as Charizard EX, but definitely like I'd rather see a scaling attack there. But regardless, I do like it. I think it's fine enough, but I don't love it. I definitely think it could be, again, more versatile. I think power level wise, it's okay, but again, it's just a little too niche. I mean, again, standard is pretty bad as well. So, and again, with only 6, if one of them's not usable, then that's a huge blow to the mechanic. Then we have the last one that's colorless, also the last one from Paradox Rift here. In this year, I think Paladin Fates might have been the next year, but in Japan, I think it was the same year. But anyways, TM Blindside here is the last one. Again, 3 colorless, just like Technical Machine, Crisis Punch, and this is the other one that does damage as well. Does 100 to one of your opponent's Pokemon that has damage counters on it. So it can be a snipe attack, but you also need damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon. It could work with something like Monkey Dory. I've not really seen this used. Apparently, looking at like these just a short set of tournaments, actually a pretty big set of tournaments, but not like all of them. It's only been played in Rotom, which it doesn't like matter what it does. It's just a technical machine, just discard it. So yeah, it hasn't really seen any play at all. That's a card I messed with a little, but it's pretty terrible because it it doesn't really. It's kind of awkward. 3 energy, as I said, isn't super hard to pay, but not super easy either. But you need damage counters on your opponent's board, but like you don't need. If it's just a little bit, it's not enough. And if it's like if you've already done like a ton of damage counters to your opponent's board with one attack, then why do you be using the technical machine? Why don't you just use that attack again? So its use cases are very, very niche. And then it's like kind of fun, but it's not versatile. It's not like, oh, lots of decks could use it occasionally. Like, no, most decks are never going to be able to get value out of this, or at least very, very rarely. And searching tools is very doable with Arvin as well as other things, but it's not like, again, it just isn't useful enough to warrant a spot in decks. I think if it was 1 energy, it would be pretty cool here. It might be too strong. I'm not sure. But overall, I kind of like it. I mean, doing damage, as I said, with attacks is like the point of attacks. So I feel like a lot of them should be that way. And this is the most versatile of the attacks outside, I guess, Team Devolution, but that doesn't actually do any damage. Or sorry, attacks that do like quote do damage or take knockouts. So this card is okay. I kind of see what it's going for, but it needs damage counters already, and it's kind of expensive, and it's not something you can really build around, so it just doesn't really have a place, as I said. I think you could remove the production needing damage counters on it to make it like an interesting little snipe card for either finishing out games or targeting your opponent's Pokemon or whatever. There are some different use cases there. Again, this is one just a little underpowered. Because it never really has an amazing situation for it. It has some like okay situations, and then a lot of situations where it's terrible. But then let's talk about the last one before I talk about my suggestions to improve them here. The last one is TM Fluorite. This one was released like a lot later. Not really sure why. And presumably we're not getting any more. I don't know if that's confirmed. But anyways, this one is kind of weird. So it says for Grass, Water, Psychic, does the attack Fluorite, which says you discard all energy from this Pokemon and heal all damage from each of your Terra Pokemon. This is really bad, right? Healing all damage from all your Terra Pokemon. Terra Pokemon aren't really that tanky, I don't think. I mean, Pikachu EX kind of is. Scarlet GX is playing it, like, kind of, sort of is. I mean, they're, like, moderately tanky, but they're not particularly tanky. So they'll be, being one-shot at times. And then the attack cost is, like, unpayable, right? This is... I don't know. I don't know where you'd play this. Maybe Terra Box, right? And I guess that is Terra Box. You're playing a bunch of Terras, but you're using your attack to heal. Healing isn't that good. You lose all the energy, and it's so expensive to pay, and the value isn't very good. Like it's just terrible all around. So I don't know. I don't really I don't really know what Pokemon was thinking of this card because it's just super bad. Also, it was kind of obviously during the era of Stellar Pokemon. So it's like inspired by Stellars, where it's this like weird attack cost, and pretty much all the Stellar attacks are bad. If we look at them, I can't think of a no. Pikachu EX is good, and then I think the rest are all bad. I mean they're okay to bad, somewhere in that range. So ultimately, this kind of falls within that. And so this one like hardly counts. I'd say the other 5, they were released together pretty much and are all like more universal. So no idea what's going on with this one. I don't hate the idea of having it be like a little type specific, but this isn't type specific. This is just unpayable. So yeah, I've never seen anyone play this card. I can't really think of a use case of this card, as I said. So looking at the TMs, I think it'd be cool to have, as I said, more that actually do damage, and just more in general. They don't need to be anything crazy, but they could. No, I looked at the other ones. There's a bunch of new special conditions of the older ones. There are some that are a little disruptive. Honestly, if we kind of look at them, and then we look at the baby Pokemon as well, which I actually don't think I can sort. I could probably do some advanced search, though. Let me find those real quick. We got the babies with free retreat, free attack, and standard. Where is the attack? I probably should have prepped this before. And 30 HP. There we go. So these should be the babies in standard. And yeah, honestly, like there's some similarities. They're like these relatively weak because they're very versatile. They could be worked with anything. But there are these relatively weak attacks here that are kind of fun. So I think if we kind of honestly took all these attacks, put them on TMs, except for maybe Badoo. Badoo's like kind of nasty, right? But you look at something like Cleffa, that's kind of fun setup. If we had something like that on a TM, that'd be cool. Something like Elekid, right? If it was this exact attack on a TM, I'd kind of like that. Doing 30 snipe for free, it's kind of fun. It's kind of like TM Blindside. It's a little weak, but it has some value there. I think it's kind of cool. You look at something like Mantike with some healing, it's not like super good, but also Mantike itself is just so weak that the healing probably isn't going to be good enough. But I would like that more than TM Fluorite, which again, it's just like unusable. And there's a wide variety here that are kind of interesting. Mime Junior, super fun, super terrible, but like so fun. I've never used it because it's just really bad, but it is fun here. And just different ideas could be cool there. There's so many different options that they could go for. I mean, there's a bit of variety in here, but I definitely like to see more from the mechanic. But comment down below if you think that the mechanic is good, or if you think the mechanic is bad, or if you think it's okay, and how you'd change it, or if you think it needs like balance reworks, all that good stuff. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell, and as Osmond said, see you in the next video.